throughout the day, the newsroom is a little bit like a theater.
And you had a wonderful career here.
Look, I started in this business in the 50s. So I was in it 50 years. And I was so lucky that it was that time. Because in that intervening period, from 50s on, bigger audience, more money, new technology, and it just grew and grew and grew. And Eyewitness News here in the 70s, we started in '69, was something different. But the thing that was interesting is why we were successful. One of the things that it's important to be, if you're on television or a politician or anything else, is accessible. The viewer has to feel there's a connection. And we really were a different way of presenting things, because traditionally it had been the signal coming out at the viewer. Now we sort of had a village with all these characters so the viewer could go into the village, so to speak.
When you talk about a village, what you're talking about is diversity. Oh. We had the most diverse talent of any other station, really in the country.
Well, no, it's amazing. Imagine a black woman, Melba Tolliver, anchoring a newscast, and John Johnson, and Roseanne Scamardella, Geraldo, the first Puerto Rican, Milt Lewis. There weren't that many Jews. And the interesting thing about that is that the management had to kind of be pushed into diversity. Imagine not being smart enough to realize if you diversified, the audience would grow. It was a time of turmoil, don't forget. Protest movement was still going on. Crime was terrible. Fort Apache, the Bronx. New York City almost went broke. So it was a disturbing time in many ways. And maybe we represented some aspect of disturbance. I don't honestly know.
You talk about what it was like being out on the streets back then. It was more dangerous to be out on the streets. I remember we would sometimes, during certain situations, stand on top of the live truck because the crowds were so unpredictable, and you just had to be more cautious and careful back then, right?
That standing on the top of the truck wasn't necessarily the wisest thing that was ever done, but I understand. No, it was dangerous. You would go, I would say that I would hear gunfire at least once every 6 months. It was amazing. But it was in an odd way, it was exciting, I guess, to be there. If you go to the South Bronx, what happened there, Jimmy Carter came to a place called Charlotte Street. We took a camera and did a sweep around and showed where once 10,000 people lived and where now no one lived.
What was the story, the seminal story that you remember that still is with you today?
I talked to a guy off the Brooklyn Bridge, which is ridiculous. Guy's going to commit suicide, and I'm there, and the guy says he wants to talk to the media. This stupid cop hands me the walkie-talkie. I have no experience in this. So I'm talking to the guy, and eventually I got him to come down, and he went back up the next day. But in local news, you can change things. I saved a building from destruction in the Bronx that would have put 30 people out on the street, 30 families out on the street. You could have influence, you could change things, actually. And I think that's a duty, but I think it's also something that you can be proud of. You know, people have been predicting the demise of local TV stations for a long time. That isn't going to happen. I think the audience will get smaller and the budgets will too. But it's going to be there because it's very important. The image of the news media, through a variety of reasons, has diminished. There's no question about it. And it's sad as sad can be, because basically the news media does a good job. The problem is too many people who think they're reporters. You know, last year I couldn't spell journalist, now I are one, right?
Are you proud to have been part of Eyewitness News?
Oh, of course I am. No, I am proud to have been here. This has been the best place, with some exceptions, for all of those 40 years, and will continue to be so. And it's a damn good newscast. But I think the loyalty to Channel 7 has always been a little different strain, and I think it remains.
And the questions that are asked about how the show will actually go on the air also multiply.